Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to book a time for a while. People have been reaching out to me to say, please have Melissa on a lot, especially a lot of the female pawnbrokers. They're like, we want to hear from Melissa, want to hear from Melissa.
Wow.
So again, thank you for being on. It's awesome.
Thanks for having me. This was super fun. And
So
I got to cookie this morning, so I'm okay with that.
There you go. So first and foremost, congratulations on 7 years.
Thank you.
I saw that you closed on your building.
On the 7th anniversary of the day that I opened. Like
Amazing.
a perfect 7.
Incredible. Lucky number
The
7.
odds are insane.
Awesome. So give us a little bit of history. Like, how long have you been in the pawn business? What did you do before? I know this is kind of like a long question. And then what got you in to open your store?
I grew up in the pawn business, not in the respect that my parents had stores. So here's the long and short of it. My dad was a commercial contractor, and construction is chicken or feathers. So in the wintertime when he was feathers, he would pawn his entire construction company and became really good friends with our local pawn broker. And then like decades down the road, ended up eventually working for him and then opening his own store. But when I was like 6 years old, I would stand in the pawn shop all day, and my first official job was the superintendent of Windex and paper towels. That was and then I graduated to mops and brooms, and all things sticky. And so I just, by standing around all the time, kind of, as I got older, started helping behind the counter. And then my dad eventually opened the first 2 pawn shops in Eastern Oregon, in Bend and Redmond, and he had them for about 10 years, but he wouldn't let me work in them, to be honest. He didn't like the idea that it was dangerous, and being a girl, he thought if something happened to me, he would blame himself. So I went on to be a contractor. So I became a commercial contractor. I was a general for a long time. And in 2008, it ate me and took away my birthday. I lost everything. So I was 44 years old and didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. And I was totally flat busted. I didn't file bankruptcy, but I ate a lot of top ramen and had to turn my heat off for the winter. Wow. So it was tough. I happened to go home and visit some friends. And while I was home, I ran into my dad's mentor. And he asked me what I was doing. And I said, it's funny you should ask, because I don't know. I have no idea. So he said, open a pawn shop. And I said, that'd be cool, but I don't know how. Like, he said, well, you've been in the pawn shop. And I said, I don't know the back end. The back end is where it matters. The front end is big because you have to make good buys and do good sales and do good loans, but you have to track it and you have to grow it and you have to be responsible to the monster that it becomes. And you really can just kind of blow it out the other end very quickly. So he said, you need X amount of dollars, you need X amount of demographic, you need X amount of space, get those things together and I will open my store up to you and I'll teach you everything. Wow. And I was like, really? Because that would be, I would be really into that. So one thing I learned is that at that time he was about 70 years old, and that recipe was also about 70 years old, and I just almost missed big because those numbers weren't big enough. It was tough. I went and worked for him. I did all the things that he asked me to do. I worked for him for like 4 months, and he kicked me out. He was like, you've got it, go. If you need me, call me. So I went and got this. Building was just this disgusting bar. It was so nasty. But as a contractor, nothing scares me. It's a box. At the end of the day, it's just a box. So I spent way more money than I should have fixing it up because I wanted it to have a certain feel. Your vibe attracts your tribe. And it was super important to me that when people came in, the bar that was there was completely erased and there was just no memory of it. And then I had my own platform. So I fixed it all up and turned on the open sign and stood in the middle of it and thought, I have lost my mind. How's anybody going to know it's open? So I about starved to death and worked for nothing I took my first paycheck this year.
Wow. Incredible.
7 years and no paycheck.
So let everybody know like where you're located, what the interest rate is, and then like what the hold period is so those listening know.
I'm in Bonnie Lake, Washington, which is not in Seattle, but I'm on the west side. Everybody thinks you're either in Seattle or Spokane. Mm-hmm. I'm in a little urban town. I have a fluctuating rate every $9.99 up to $100, and then the state of Washington the variable rate is off. You couldn't memorize it if you had to. It is a decent rate. We do
Gotcha.
get decent. We're not as good as some. We're better than others. We're somewhere in the middle. So
Awesome. Great. So open for 7 years. And when you first stood there, you're like, man, what am I doing? What does that feel like today? 7-year anniversary. You own your building. What does it feel like to be, a female in the pawn industry, 7 years into it? You got your paycheck, you're making some money. What's next for Melissa?
Well, it feels amazing. I love what I do. I invested in myself. I started school. I'm almost done with my graduate gemology degree.
Awesome.
I grew up on a farm, so I've been a firearms expert most of my life, which is always really interesting because when the old guys come in, and they're like, I'm like, can I help you with something? And they look at me like, girl, you just need to get out the way and let me talk to one of these guys about a gun, missy, So I still get some of that, which is super entertaining. And when I can tear down a firearm and, work from the internals out and all that, it's always very rewarding. The ability to be able to grade and appraise diamonds. And then also I have a lab set up. So if my customers come in with a blue stone, I can tell them if it's natural or it's man-made. I can grade it, appraise it. So it's very empowering. When I first started, I was really just, surprised at how much I didn't know, and that you never learn it all. You'll never know it all. But I have these incredible veterans and lots of people in the industry that are so forthcoming and so helpful. The groups that we're in, these podcasts, the information is so at your fingertips. When my parents started, they had everything in a book.
Yeah.
And as you know, the minute you print a price guide, that price guide it's obsolete. So it was a lot of touch and feel, whereas I've had the advantage of all kinds of experience and wonderful people in this business. I love this business. What was the other question you asked? I got lost.
No, so you're 7 years into it. And you said something that really hit a chord with me. You said your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Talk to me about like the vibe of, it's called Pistol Annie's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did the name come from? What is that vibe that you have in the store? And what are you trying to attract in a tribe? Like, what is it that you want? And somebody asked the question, they said, you have this way of attracting and being part of the community that's so incredible that you do have a tribe of people. So first tell us like how you came up with that name, and then how do you build that tribe within your community?
Well, it started with, so I grew up on a farm. I grew up on a ranch, and we had no electricity. So I can tell old timer stories. Like I had oil lanterns, kerosene lanterns, and we had a big fireplace. We cooked on a cast iron stove that was 8 feet long, including baking the whole nine. So I read. I was just a nerd from the minute I could read a word. I was always in a book. So my hero was Annie Oakley. Her story is incredible. That girl was trapping at 8 years old and feeding her family. I'm just saying, she was amazing. So when I got the store, I'm a cowgirl anyway. I raised horses. That's me. I'm not a city girl much. So I wanted it to have a feminine slant, but I didn't want my name on the billboard, partly for security reasons. And now everybody calls me Annie. And I just let them. I just let it ride. I don't correct them. I smile. I'll come to Annie like just snap my neck to turn around. It's hilarious. So I just really wanted it to have that feminine, and I also did the store in reclaimed lumber. So we hand built all of the cases. One, for lack of financing, and two, it being a builder. Took a building that had been torn down. It was 125 years old when it was torn down. And so all the cases were all hand built, and they looked like the Wild Wild West. So, awesome. And that's just kind of it just kind of all worked together. Yeah. So
very, very cool. So tell me about that, the vibe attracts your tribe. They say, somebody asked the question, they basically said that you do such an incredible job at building community, right? Creating that sense of community within your customers. What would you say to pawnbrokers listening? What's the best way to do that? And what made you think like, my vibe attracts my tribe. I want my community to be a part of what Pistol Annie's is. How do you do that?
Well, I think you have to be, it's a quality of your person, and it's your persona and what you put out. So I don't put up with silliness in my store. I am the last place you want to bring something stolen. I promise you. I will go to the ends of the earth to eat you for $10. And everybody knows it. I am just such an asshole. I really am. So everyone in my store is kind of just like kind folk who you come in, everyone's comfortable. It's like Cheers. I mean, people come in and they just hang out and talk a lot. They'll just stop by and just to say hi, or people bring me pie and cookies and they bake me bread and muffins, and it's just awesome. I mean, it's just so cool. And it's because they have been in the store when someone has come in and acted silly. And I am just so animated. I'm like a pawn shop in a show, man. When somebody brings something in stolen, I just make a fool out of them. And everybody gets a good laugh, and we tell that story for months. And so I like quality people, and I appreciate quality people, and the power in helping someone when they're genuinely in a situation that they need help, and the money is the bastard. They can do everything, but they can't come up with the money. And when you can't find $10, when $10 is more than you can accomplish, I've been there. I have been the brokest person I know. So I know how they feel. So we can take care of the financial part, and then we can give them a hug. We can cry with them across the counter and say, now go do what's important. The money's over. Your stuff is safe. It's cheap storage. I explain to people very often, it's like a storage unit. If you take your entire household and you're moving and you put it in storage for 2 or 3 months, then you're really well off. That's perfect. But if you leave it in storage for 5 years, get new stuff. Don't chase good money after bad. It doesn't make sense. On the other hand, I've got people who are super smart, and they figured out they can take their rifle collection and they can borrow a little bit of money, and they can store it away from their wife and children and just take it out when they go hunting.
There you go.
So, I mean, there are people who do store long term, and there's sentimental value. I mean, sometimes you have people that, you know, grandma's ring, they know it's safe. They're not paying a whole lot to have it there, but the cash flow is just, until it gets straightened out, it is going to take time. So there's always, you know, there's no absolutes in this business, but
You talk
I
about
also try not to let people get upside down and stuff. We don't overloan.
Awesome.
I want them to have their stuff back. That's how I continue to keep them as customers.
I love that. Yeah, because if they lose it and they can't afford to get it back, then it's finished.
Lose.
Yeah. So you talk about like empathy, right? You talked about how like you were broke, so you kind of feel, you know, somebody needing $10. I feel like a lot of pawnbrokers have lost that feeling, right? And so don't look across the counter and feel for the person. Like, man, $10. It happened a lot of times when we had people walk into the store, from bankers to government officials, like, well, really, somebody needs $10? And you're like, yeah. You know, a mom needs $10 to buy diapers, gas. A guy needs $10 to get to work, whatever that is, to turn the lights on.
Gas tank to go to work is such a big deal, because what are they going to do? Not go to work and then not be a productive member of society, not have a paycheck, not feed their children? I mean, $10, $20. I think that people lose. It's easy to get tainted in this business. I cannot tell you how many times I've had somebody walk in, rip my ass, and ask me for money. And I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. Did you just like yell at me and then like ask me for money? So here's the thing. We can do this one of two ways. Either you can start over and I'll, because they're coming in, sometimes they're the worst version of themselves. And I have to remind my staff, it's not personal. They're sometimes having the worst day they'll ever have in the history of themselves. I have loaned money to parents whose 2-year-old is going through chemo. I have buried 20-nothing-year-old children and financed businesses and done, and so you can never lose sight of that. But we get tainted if you let it taint you, because of the people who are the shits. Some of these people are the drizzling shits. They just come in and they're mean and they're nasty. And I'm like, first of all, I'm 6'2", and I'm 6'7" in heels, and I wear heels sometimes. And I'm like, you're not going to push me around. I promise you. You'll have a handful of crazy you will not know what to do with. So I can usually settle about anything. And that's where I live. I live in the, you know what? We can have a good day today, or we can have a crappy day. And I don't want to have a crappy day, because I'm old and cranky. I don't need to have a crappy day.
I think the mindset is brilliant, that we have to remember that the people walking through the door sometimes are their worst selves. Like if you imagine, if you go back to a place where you're like, the husband's got to talk with the wife talk to the husband and say, we don't have $10. Like that's got to be a rough spot.
No, that's really hard on your ego. It's depressing.
Yeah. So when
I can almost every time somebody comes in like that, I can make them laugh before they leave.
Oh, that's magic.
I can almost every time get somebody to laugh before they leave.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
you know what?
Success right there.
It's a moment in time. And guess what? it's gonna change. The one thing you can count on is you can't count on anything.
Yeah.
If you are in a dump, you are going to be up. The next ebb is flow. And when it's flowing, you better enjoy it, because guess what? It won't last either.
Yeah.
Life does not stay the same. I mean, not for anybody that I know. Maybe some people have a magic existence, but I've never met anybody that does. Even in my business, I got growing pains, like a
Bitch, you can say
a
it.
bear.
I'm going to give a warning at the beginning of this. Don't worry.
I know, right? You guys, this is not filtered, man. There's no, yeah. So it's like, the more I make, the more I owe, the more taxes. I know that the veterans understand this. 7 years is probably harder than year one, to be honest, because the payroll is higher, the taxes are higher. Washington State makes so much money off me. I think I should have a retirement plan and benefits through that.
Yeah.
Like, I really should have like a health plan from Washington, sponsored by Washington State, for the money that we send them monthly.
Yeah. In California, I wanted them to be my partner and pay my expenses. It's crazy.
It's insane. It is. It really is. And the more you make, the more they want. And they invent something new every year to get a little bit of a, bigger piece. So my goal is, you asked earlier about what's next. So I was fortunate in that when I leased my property, it was actually for sale, but the title was encumbered. They couldn't deliver the title. I couldn't have purchased it. So it worked out amazingly well for me, because I wasn't in a place to perform. The bank's not going to loan you money when you've blown through most of your savings to remodel somebody else's stuff, and you're going to be a lender. I mean, it's just a whole thing. So you're totally unlendable. You have no income. But I lease optioned it, and I established the purchase price when I did my lease.
Oh, nice.
So I bought it for what it was for sale for in 2012. I also have 2 tax parcels, and the reason I'm the biggest little pawn shop in the Wild Wild West is that I have a big warehouse on a separate tax parcel, and I've got vehicles, and I've got motorcycles, and I've got all kinds of stuff. I have 1.25 acres in downtown.
Wow.
So what I'd like to do is bulldoze my warehouse and build a 2-story commercial space, a new Pistol Annie's, because I have blown the walls off of this one. I am stacking at this point to the ceiling. My office when I moved into it was like, it's like, I don't know, maybe 10 by 10 or something. And it was huge. I had a desk, and it had a little tiny safe with like a cannonball. It was a USPS surplus safe with a hole in the middle, like a round door.
Gotcha.
Not a square safe. And like the first 6 months, there was like 5, there's nothing in it. So it was huge. And now it's, I'm climbing the walls. My place is just, but it's clean, it's respectable. People walk in every single day and they're like, holy cow, this is super cool.
Yeah.
So
how do you hold on to that mindset, Melissa, when you talk about like making people laugh every day, remembering that they're having a bad day? Because you've got to do that every single day, right? Like every day you come in, you've got to give that. How much staff do you have?
I have 8 people.
8 people. So you've got to give that to your staff also, right? That's part of the culture. Like Pistol Annie's culture has to be how Melissa is, which is like funny and animated, and we're going to make people laugh. How do you give that to them so they
can't help it? I'm such a big goofball. I'm so immature. I'm like a 12-year-old little boy. I am every single day I wake up and I say my blessings. I get to be here, and I've been through, I grew up in like the worst poverty ever. I mean, the paper bag princess, the little dirty, girl with my school clothes came from Goodwill for most of my life. So I'm just thankful to be here every day. I've almost died in my career 3 times in my lifetime. I've almost lost my life. So at this point, man, every day is a gift. I got nothing to lose, and I'm a dork. Like, I'm a big old dork. So, and that, if you can laugh at yourself, everybody else will laugh at you, and then they're in a good mood.
Yeah, love it. That's the trick right there. Melissa, give us 1 or 2 kind of like strategies that you use to bring more customers in, to create that great culture within your community.
We're so much, it's really the reviews that we get that are so heartfelt. There are reviews I have that literally bring me to tears. We've worked super, super hard on the firearms and the jewelry side. I mean, I'm legitimately a very successful gun store, very successful jewelry store. And I have people of all walks of life. I have people coming in the pawn shop. I've started designing jewelry. And so I'm like, I call it serendipity, where I take two things that are maybe unrelated and build something new and fresh with them. So it's a new piece that's upcycled. We have a lot of estate pieces, and so building that stuff, I can have someone come in and spend a serious amount of money on a 2-carat diamond or bigger or whatever, and then also have somebody also buying $100 ring, and those people will mesh. Yeah. They're all very salt of the earth people. So they've gone out and they've said, I mean, we're like the top rated pawn shop in the state, or one of the very top rated pawn shops in the state. Yeah. So people actually drive from all over the state to come to this little store, and we are super genuine in that I've never met a stranger, and I love people. I love good people. So so it's just that you know your people, and when they walk in the door, you're like, holy cow, you're here. It's about time. You know what I mean?
That's so awesome. I think that love of people, like you say that we get tainted in this business. We get tainted by the few, like you said, the few people who just screw it up for everybody else. But if we keep that mindset positive of loving people, doing this for people, and the fact that we're helping them, I think that's what creates success in itself. It sets you apart from the guy across the street all the time.
I see a lot of pawn shops that they build their stores out of misery, and you walk in and it's miserable and heavy and it's dirty and discombobulated, and all it is about money. You're making money off people in a bad situation, and they don't sell anything. They don't have to. They don't discern, is somebody in there because they're supposed to be or not. And I think this business has really come full circle, because this was banking in its original form. I think we all know this. But it was a very revered business. You were a professional. You were the town bank. And when it became kind of a dirty business in the 40s and 50s, it's been a long road to hoe to recover from that. And I think that because of the other pawnbrokers out there who are also doing the same thing I'm doing, I mean, it's a lot of your own, and you build your own platform, but we also feed off of each other. There are a lot of really smart people that I can give a phone call to and will answer any question, and they'll protect me, and so as long as all of us band together and work together and build this business, I think that we'll see a lot more of this.
Yeah, love that. Love it. So Cindy Harrison asks that you've taken a very brave step, and it's not for everyone. She says that you've been very active politically in your area, political voice, very vocal business owner. How has that helped or not helped your business?
It's done both. Okay. So it's a double-edged sword, because we're in a smaller town, I think. So here's the backstory. Washington State, much like California, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, they're starting to tighten up and take away our rights to protect ourselves. I'm super offended by that. I have a personal story, so I have some personal experience in, as a woman, I'm a really strong girl, but I am a wimpy boy. I mean, it doesn't take much of a size of a guy to kick my ass, and I know it. And so I need to be able to equalize, the playing field. And to be told I'm only going to have 10 rounds in the pistol that I carry on my hip every single day. I have 21 rounds in my gun. Nobody has the right to tell me how to protect my gift of life. I'm a law-abiding person. I mean, I'm super law-abiding. I've had every 3-letter entity in order to have a pawn license has already checked me out. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of me. Nobody should be. So, but I have a right to protect myself. And so I'm a grandma and a mom. And to know that they need to have their rights intact, and my granddaughter will have, a preserved heritage in her ability to protect herself is important to me. I'm pro-rights across the board. Firearms happens to be part of my livelihood. So for the people, I started the first dealers association, the first nonprofit, and brought our dealers together in this state to start getting on the same team. Nice. I was going to my state capital and I testify, and I'm really involved, and it's really passionate. It's very, very personal for me. And so somebody's got to do it. And I happen to have the drive and the opportunity. My kids are grown and gone. So I'm like, grown-ups gone wild up here. I'm all over the place.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. Good for you. And so you also said that like it's hurt the business in a way, or like kind of divided the crowd, right? I'm sure some people are like, well, what do you mean? How can you do this, Melissa? You're part of the community. That's got to happen as well, right?
Well, there's a mindset that we're all walking around with military weapons. And so there is an opportunity there too to have a conversation, because I've had people walk in, and even though it's Pistol Annie's and my logo has 2 revolvers on it,
Yeah.
they walk in and they're like, "Oh my God, look at all these guns." And I'm like, what about them? And they're like, "They're so scary." I'm like, "They're not loaded. I'd have to hit you with it. That's not even, they're just sticks and bats and like rocks. I mean, they're nothing." And so that opens up an opportunity to talk about, just because we have taken Grandpa's 22 and made it ergonomic does not make it militarized. And that opens up an opportunity of education. I can dress you up like Darth Vader, and while you will look scary, you will have no more power than you have today. I'm sorry. So that's all we've done is we've dressed up a bunch of squirrel guns and made them easier to handle, and they're not a problem. But there are some people who you'll never change their mind.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can go to the pawn shop that doesn't have anybody in it that is armed, who has been robbed 5 times in the last 3 years. And I will say a prayer for you and wish you well on your way. But over half of my staff is retired military veterans. I'm so blessed to have them. I have such a great team. I'm so fortunate to have the people that have championed me and been with me and stayed with me, and we protect each other. So the few that fall by the wayside, meh.
I mean,
You win some, you lose some,
yeah.
Never going to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Somebody's out there cussing me right now and saying dirty on my name.
No, you got pawnbrokers listening. Remember that. So
Let them be.
go, Melissa, keep going. So awesome. So let's talk about this. You talked about like when you grow up, you were reading a lot. That brings me to like education. What are you learning next? Like, what do you feel you want to learn next, bring into be able to grow your business?
Well, I want to get through this damn degree. I can't believe I'm as old as I am and in school. Like, I'm a slow learner, apparently. Like, I wish I would have known what I was going to be when I grew up a lot earlier in life. I wish my dad hadn't taken the "you're a girl" stance. But maybe I wouldn't have been ready either. So being correctly seasoned has a lot to do with success. Next, I want to build out this big commercial. I'm going to go like so far into it. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I want to build this big commercial space, and I will have ultimately somewhere around 20,000 square feet of rental for other commercial businesses, and then I'm a really solid anchor. So last year we had 1,645 new customers on December 31st when we closed the doors.
Amazing.
We have a strong demographic. We have a strong pull to the store, and so anybody that we can bring into that little space, I think, is going to find some success off of the amount of people that we've already got built in.
Awesome.
So that's my goal.
Awesome. So when I announced that you were going to be interviewed on the show, a lot of and I bring this up only because I think it's important, but a lot of the females were excited, right? I think 98% of the people who have been on the podcast have been male, and only because a lot of women don't stand up, even though I've asked like, hey, I want to interview more female pawnbrokers to get like their history, how they got into the business. So there's 39 countries listening, thousands of people listening to this. What would you say to just a pawnbroker, right? And then B, what would you say to the female pawnbroker listening to this to inspire and motivate?
What could you do if you could do anything? Like, the people who make a difference in the world are the people crazy enough to think that they can. If somebody else can do it, you can do it. And you have this amazing group of people. I mean, we have technology at our fingertips, and we have all these veterans who are just seriously some of the coolest human beings I've ever had the privilege of meeting. And they're helpful and wonderful, and they will do everything to help you succeed. So you really don't have any obstacles but yourself. The only failure you encounter is your limitations. Yeah. And those are typically based on fear. Fear is a lack of faith. I can't tell you how many times I have gone to work and I'm like, well, this is it. We've lost our mojo. Today's the last day. We are done. I've had business partners steal from me. I've had employees screw me and try to taint my name. I mean, I've been through the gamut. And at the end of the day, I'm still there. Passion will take you a long ways. Action is everything. You can be the most talented person in the world, and if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. It's hard to beat somebody who never quits. Don't quit. Yeah. That's the thing, is when you get close to failure, you're probably also very close to success. It's hard to beat somebody that doesn't quit. That's my mantra. So, and if you have a question, call me. Yeah. I'm here. I've just been through the beginning, I'm like medium large now. I'm not little. No, I say I'm little. And in the scheme of things, when you talk about, Ben Levison and Perry Lewin and the big pawn guys that have the multiple stores, and those guys are, I mean, God bless them. I don't know how they do it. I can't. 15 stores, it sounds just like a daunting. I mean,
Yeah, seriously. 100 plus employees.
You got to be a special kind of crazy, honestly.
I think you
got
have
to
to
be a
be
special
kind of
kind of
crazy. And then as like Bob Moulton says, you have to hire people that are way smarter than you. That's what
Absolutely.
Tim Latimer and Bob Moulton and all these guys who have been on the show, all these pawnbrokers, they're just like, it's not me. Like I just hire smarter people and better people. And they just tell me to get out of the way and I get out of the way.
And there is some truth to that. But when you talk to somebody like Nick Bolton, you talk to, these veterans, they are so smart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very humbling, to be honest, to go to NPA and sit with these guys and listen to their recipes of success and the things that just the way their minds work. And I think that's what makes us all very similar, is we're kind of just a bunch of big nerds. We're a bunch of immature big nerds that drink a lot.
I know it. So you're very involved in the NPA, obviously. And I think it's super important to be involved.
You have to, to interject this, I don't mean to cut you off, but if we don't have a lobbyist, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And unless somebody wants to get their ass out there and go to the freaking Capitol and meet all these legislators, these congressmen and the senators, you better pay somebody to get out there. And that's what I'm doing in Washington State. We don't have a lobbyist representing our firearms rights. We have to have attorneys and lawyers. The NPA, I don't care what they do, right or wrong, they do that, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. That's enough.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's so like I was in the industry for 18 years, third generation, and I've seen so much happen where we could have been shut down. Where they could have capped the rates. They could have done stuff to be like, sorry, Melissa, you can't take any more guns, or, you can only charge 18%, whatever that is. It could have been so much done, but because we paid money and we paid it gladly, lobbyists went out there, the work was done. You have executive directors, people doing the work so you can work in the store and make money.
They've talked about deregulating us. They've talked about we're predatory lenders.
Yeah.
We're not predatory lenders. People can walk away from the debt and it doesn't affect their credit. We know this. But we keep having to educate these people who look down on us and say that we're somehow taking advantage. Really? You find a bunch of money to hand out and help people and then tell me all about that. I don't have time to go to the Congress and explain it. So we have to have somebody out there that does. Predatory lending pisses me off. That is just
I agree.
That's a sharp blow for me. Yep. So I want somebody out there that, the NPA is very important. And you criticize, there's always armchair quarterbacks. Criticize all you want. As long as that lobbyist is in place and they're representing us, that is valuable and they need to be paid, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and it's not cheap. That's for sure.
No. Oh, good Lord, no. Nobody wants to do that job for free or cheap or for pennies. It's awful. It's an awful job. It's like, no. Listen, I probably wouldn't be so happy-go-lucky if I had to go do that every day.
Miss Melissa, can you please walk outside?
Oh, could you just see me? Oh man.
Yeah, that's.
I've had people say, I would be escorted.
I've had, hey, you should get into politics. I'm like, I can't, because then I'll call somebody's bullshit and they'll get really mad, and I just can't do that. So I'd rather not.
I'm afraid I would grab somebody.
This has been awesome. I'm so happy you came on the show.
Yeah, me too. It's super fun.
If you have any last any last kind of like gold nuggets or value you want to add, please, this is the moment to do it. Anything that you want to say to all the pawnbrokers listening across the nation, across the world, actually?
Wow. Well, a couple of things. I would say, first of all, thank you to all of the people that have taken the time to answer all my questions. I'm a question asker. I'm very inquisitive, and I'm not afraid to pick up the phone. And I appreciate the people that are willing to take that phone call. And to the people getting started, make those phone calls too, and don't give up. Don't be a hoarder and try and stay in business. Get that inventory turned and burned. And if you borrow, you're putting yourself on the other side of the pawn counter. I have never borrowed I have no debt. I own my inventory lock, stock, and barrel. I don't have any business loans. And that is, and buying my property, the two best things that I've done for myself is to have that discipline. Don't take more than you need. Don't take home the cool stuff, not until you can afford it. And always be willing to give it back when you realize, I got
You
to
just
pay the
said,
bill.
don't take home the cool stuff. And I would remember my brother and I putting our names on items before they come out from buyer pawn. It's like, oh, Eagle. And he'd be like, wait a second. I didn't even see it. I'm like, sorry, I called dibs, but you're right.
Right?
You know, like you got to turn that merchandise, sell it, make the money, put it back into loan, and keep growing.
There's always more stuff. There's so much more stuff. And eventually, if you have the discipline, I mean, you get to have a few things and keep them. But I see an awful lot of people trying to keep more than they should. People ask me all the time, how do you sell this stuff? Like, it's easy. You should see my bills. Nobody in that store will work for free. If they would work for free, I could keep some stuff.
I've had some crazy conversations with people where they say like, hey, Eagle, I can't afford to put new flooring or paint the walls. And I'll just ask like, how much inventory do you have? And we talk about this on almost every episode. They're like, I have $300,000 with $80,000 in loan balance. I'm like, how, what's your turn? Like, I don't know. We calculate, it's like 0.8. I'm like, you have enough money to paint, the store, get new cars, houses, pay more people. Just enough is enough.
Right.
Awesome. Love it. Melissa, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time. For those of you listening to the podcast, don't forget to join us on the Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, go to Pawn Leaders Podcast Community. I have the honor of having Melissa in there. So if you have a question for her, just go in and you can tag her in a post. Thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Pawn Leaders Podcast.